I once had to tow a trailer. If you think an Asian is a bad driver, wait till you see an Asian try to tow a trailer. And it's even harder when you try to reverse the trailer because it's the opposite of what you normally do. When you try to go right, it goes left. When you try to go left, it goes right. You have to do the opposite of what you normally do. So maybe life is the same because we get told to be true to ourselves, but somehow we're empty and unfulfilled. What if we have things round the wrong way, upside down? So welcome to our once a year Feb Talk series. This year we're doing Unleashing the Power of Paradox, flipping the script on an upside down world, season 2. And what we're doing is we're looking at stories that Jesus tells, because in these stories, Jesus has a paradox which he uses to flip our upside down world the right way back up. And this year we're going to flip the script on the paradox of living your best life, the paradox of chasing your dreams, the paradox of being true to yourself, and the paradox of living in the moment. Today's week 3, so we're going to do the paradox of being true to yourself. And we're going to try to answer this question: how can I be true to myself? And this will come in the form of a 20-minute talk from me now, followed by question and answer from you guys. So as I'm speaking, think of whatever question you want to ask. Go to that QR code, ask the question, and afterwards, I'll do my best to answer that question. So how can I be true to myself? We've just heard a story that Jesus tells us in the Bible where a person does that. He follows the script on being true to himself, but there's going to be a paradox, and Jesus uses that paradox to flip the script on our upside down world. So let's begin. What is the script? Well, the script we're given is this: you got to be true to yourself. So let's go back to that story that Jesus tells. Jesus says, hey, there was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. At his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores, longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. Jesus tells a story where there are two men. One is very poor, but the other man is rich and lives in luxury. His Instagram post will look like this: #living the dream, I did it my way, true to myself. And being true to ourselves is quite a cultural meme. This is Bronnie Ware, palliative care nurse in the UK, and she wrote this best-selling book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, where her dying patients shared with her what her top regrets were. And the number one top regret of people dying was this: I wished I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. And it's a great story where we should have the courage to live the life we want, not the life that others want us to live. And this is why we love these movies: Bend It Like Beckham, High School Musical, Babe, because in all of these movies, the hero has the courage to live the life they want to live, not the life that others want them to live. In my house, if there was a fire that burned everything down and I could only save one thing, it would not be my birth certificate. It would not be my marriage certificate. No, this is what I would save, because this is what defines me. You can't see it, you can't read it, but it's a trophy that says this: Sydney University Football Club, the rugby team for Sydney University, best forward, 5th grade, 1995, Sam Chan. Because this trophy validates me. It shows that the son of Asian immigrants who would have wanted him to do the violin and something safe like table tennis instead, chose a contact sport and had the courage to be true to himself. It's a great story, but if it's such a great story, why are we still so empty and unfulfilled? Because there's a paradox in this storyline, and it's this. The paradox is, but who are we really being true to? Let's go back to the story. The time came when the beggar died and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where the rich man was in torment, he looked up and he saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. So the rich man called, "Father Abraham, have pity on me and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I'm in agony in this fire." But Abraham replied, "Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he's comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all of this, between us and you, a great chasm has been set in place, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross from over there to us." So somehow the fortunes are reversed. Why? Well, in this storyline, there are at least two problems. There's this problem, a philosophical problem. Who am I really being true to? I once ran the City to Surf in Sydney, 14-kilometre fun run, and as I was running, part of me wanted to stop. But as I was running, part of me wanted to keep on going. So should I be true to myself and stop, or should I be true to myself and keep on going? Well, with 40,000 people running up behind you, I chose to keep on going. But was I being true to myself, or was I just doing what the crowd wanted me to do? Tim Keller puts it this way. He says, imagine you're a Viking and you were born, and part of you likes to kill, maim, and murder. But the other part of you wants to play table tennis. You know, like a billion Chinese can't be wrong. So which one do you be true to? Well, let's say you live 1,000 years ago in Norway. Well, you would choose the part that kills, maims, and murders, because you would save your village, you'd be celebrated as a hero, you'd get to go to all the primary schools and inspire the kids to also kill, maim, and murder, just like you, and you'll be celebrated. But let's say now instead you live in the 21st century and you're in Eastwood with all the other Asians. Now, to be true to yourself, you would play table tennis and you would be celebrated as a hero. You'd go to the primary schools and inspire other children to play table tennis just like you. So were you really being true to yourself, or were you just doing what the crowds wanted you to do? There's a second problem, and it's a metaphysical problem. There are bigger truths than just our own. In America, just last week, they had the Super Bowl, and it's their grand final for the NFL, their football game. And did you notice the team that won got called the world champions? And we just roll our eyes at that. You're like, come on, America, you're not the only country in the world. But for Americans, they live as if they are the only country in the world. They're true to themselves, but not true to the other countries around them. And that's why Americans have that bad reputation as tourists, because even as they travel, they're true to themselves, but they're not true to those around them. There are bigger truths than just our own truths. So this is a picture of our family. That's me, my wife, my kids. Now let's say at work I meet someone and I decide, you know what, I'm now going to leave my family and start a new life with this person I leave at work. At this moment, I am being true to myself, but I'm not being true to those around me. There are bigger truths than just our own truths. So and this is what this man has done. He has lived as if he is the only person he needs to be true to, but there are bigger truths than just his own truth. So how can we flip it? The flip is this: live for that bigger truth. And Jesus uses the paradox in the parable to show what the bigger truths are. But Abraham replied, "Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things, but now he's comforted here and you're in agony. And besides all of this, between us and you, a great chasm has been set in place. So those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross from over there to us." Jesus uses a story. The rich man answered, "Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my family, for I have 5 brothers. Let Lazarus warn them so that they will not also come to this place of torment." Abraham replied, "They've got Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them." The rich man said, "No, Father Abraham, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent." And Abraham said to the rich man, "If they don't listen to Moses and the prophets, they won't be convinced even if someone rises from the dead." Jesus uses this story to show us the bigger truths. So what are these bigger truths that flip our upside down world the right way back up? Flip number one is this. Our true self is designed to love and serve others. When we ask the question, how can I be true to myself, what are we really asking? This is Arthur Brooks. He writes in The Atlantic. He's written a book called How to Build a Happy Life. He's sort of a happiness expert. And he puts it this way. When we ask, how can I be true to ourselves, we're actually asking the wrong question. It's like asking, how can I get healthy from junk food? That's the wrong question. The correct question is, how can I eat healthy food? That's what we should be asking. So when we ask, how can I be true to myself, that's not what we should be asking. The correct question is, well, what is my true self? We're asking, what is my design? See, what is my design? What is design? See, this is a mountain bike and this is a road bike. They're designed for different conditions. This is a short board. This is a long board. They're designed for different waves. Now, I'm looking out here and I'm seeing all these lost faces because, again, this is an Asian church, right? I've lost you. This is better. This is a wok. And this is a rice cooker. They have a different design for different foods. So the question we need to ask then is, well, what is my design? Arthur Brooks answers it this way. He says, well, if you're trying to answer this in the Eastern worldview, you say this mysterious sort of proverb. You say, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And it's nonsensical because the point of the proverb is you need two hands to clap. We're not designed to live by ourselves in isolation. We need others for our true existence. And if you're in America, you'd say, well, don't leave me hanging. That's the American equivalent. And really we're expressing the bigger Christian faith worldview, which is this. We're made in the image of God. And Arthur Brooks says, God is love. And what that means is we are designed to love and serve others. That's when we find our fullest, richest human existence. But this man chose to live for himself. And he finds himself living for himself for eternity, empty and unfulfilled. The second flip is this. Our true self is designed to love and worship God. I have a friend who lives in Canada. And in Canada, they have the Rockies. And they're spectacular. So when this friend came to visit us in Sydney, I thought she would be unimpressed by our Blue Mountains. But she wasn't. She was so impressed. And what that taught me was we have an infinite capacity for awe and wonder. Because we've been designed for awe and wonder. We've been designed to live in awe and wonder of the infinite God. Somehow we've been designed to love, worship, and serve God. This is Rod Dreher, just put out this book, Living in Wonder. Rod Dreher was quite a committed atheist agnostic until he found himself in moments of awe and wonder and realizing he had been designed to live in awe and wonder and worship of God. This is Sarah Irving Stonebreaker, Australian historian, was an atheist, but then she journeyed into faith through doing a PhD in Cambridge, teaching in Florida. She had an intellectual awakening where she realized, Christianity is intellectually true and coherent. But she also had a sacred awakening where she realized there were moments of awe and wonder where she felt most complete when she was worshiping God. And this man, this poor man, have you noticed he has a name in the story? His name is Lazarus, he has an identity. He's fully human, and presumably he did live a life where he loved and worshipped God, a life where he loved and served others. But the rich man in the story, did you notice he doesn't have a name? He's not fully human. He has no identity. By being true to himself only, he was one-dimensional. So let's go back to our original question. It was this: how can I be true to myself? And today we've looked at this. The script we're usually given is, well, you've got to be true to yourself. But the paradox has been, but who are we really being true to? And the flip is this: to be true to ourselves, live for the bigger truth, where we're designed to love others and we're designed to love God. A few years ago, I was traveling, going to a conference in an overseas country, and I relied on Google Maps to get to me at the conference centre. And Google Maps made me climb a mountain. And when I got to the top of the mountain, there was nothing there. Google Maps was wrong. And that made me think of this book by David Brooks called The Second Mountain. David Brooks grew up agnostic and atheist, but he too journeyed to faith. And he describes his journey to faith in his book, The Second Mountain. And he describes his own life. He says, in my own life, I spent my efforts climbing the first mountain. And he says the first mountain is where you satisfy the needs of the ego. You look for success, validation, trophies, gains, victories, and you get to the top of that mountain and you realize there is nothing here. It's empty. It's unfulfilling. And David Brooks says that's when you realize there's actually a second mountain you should be climbing instead. And that's where you satisfy, he says, the needs of the soul, where it's about giving, serving, loving, and sacrifice. And that's when you realize if this is true, and we all intuitively know this is true, then this can only be true if there's a loving, giving, sacrificing, serving God behind the universe. So we're most fully human when we too love and serve this God, and in him we find the power to love and serve others. And that's how he journeyed to faith. And so the rich man in the story, he really climbed the first mountain where he satisfied the needs of the ego, whereas presumably the poor man didn't. And Jesus uses this story to say, hey, we should be climbing the second mountain instead, where it's about giving, loving, and serving others.
Thank you so much, Christine. And thank you so much, Sam, for another amazing talk. We do have some questions here today. So, and this is the first time I haven't been having technological issues for Q&A. So, it's good. Okay, we have an amazing team up the back who are helping us get this running. And our first question today is just that first one in week 3 there. How do we grapple with the decision-making and uncertainty in living to our true selves? As young people, even older people who are facing change or periods of transition ahead, how can we seek God's guidance for what is most true?
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so hard to live in the 21st century, because we've been told to be true to ourselves. And as that person in the question is asking, that's so slippery. It's so elastic. What is my true self? Like, is my true self the part that wanted to stop running in the city of surf, or the part that wanted to keep on running, and that keeps changing? And as you go through life stages, I've got to admit, my personality has changed. I'm not the same person I was when I was at university, and the university me was not the same person I was in high school. So even, what is my true self? It's slippery, it's elastic, and so that's why it's so hard to fulfill that thing, and that's what I was trying to deconstruct in the talk there. And that's where Tim Keller and I guess Jesus in the Bible says, well, and Arthur Brooks says, that's the wrong question. It's like saying, how can I get healthy from junk food? That's not the right question. The better question is, well, what is my true self? What have I been designed for? And that's where Arthur Brooks points us to to saying, well, if we're made in the image of God, and if God is love, my true self is actually designed to live in community, to love and serve others. That's when I feel most fully human, most fully fulfilled, when I live to love and serve others.
Yeah, it really does flip the script on the way we view the world, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
we think, okay, if I pursue my own goals, my own dreams, if I be true to something inside of me, some feeling inside of me, then I'll be fulfilled. But actually finding our true design, that we're actually made for loving service of others and loving service of God, like you've shown us today, it does profoundly change our whole orientation and experience to life.
Yeah, and I was listening to Ian McGilchrist, not a Christian, but he's written 2 big books. One is called The Master and the Apprentice, and one is called The Matter of All Things. And I think it's 900 pages, 2 volumes. It's just come out this year. He's a psychiatrist, neuroscientist, and he says, as humans, we're designed for 3 things. Something meta, so just to know what is true. We designed for meaning, and he says the reason why we're having all of these, why a meta crisis, a meaning crisis, and a mental crisis, is we've been designed for 3 things. One is community, to not live in isolation. 2, nature, so we need to get outside, touch grass, as the meme says. But the 3rd one is we've designed for the sacred. We've actually lived desacred lives, and we need to re-enchant our lives with the sacred.
Yeah, so profound, and I think that's what's behind our next series. If I can just do another shout out to what Christine promoted about our Encounter series, really actually seeing how Jesus is making a difference in people's lives, hearing these testimonies of people and going, wow, people are actually seeking God. They're truly seeking God, and that to know God for themselves, and how God actually comes to them and answers that search for them. Yeah, so thank you for that. That's great. Okay, next question here is loving and serving others excessively at the expense of our well-being. How do we love and serve others wholeheartedly without being burnt out, without risking burnout?
I love that. And again, you don't want to build a whole system just from one short story in the Bible. And the Bible has other passages to give us a richer, more multi-layered view of this. And there's a great verse in the Bible where it says, husbands, love your wives in the same way you have to love and serve, yourself. Like you have to make sure you're healthy, make sure you're looked after. So in loving ourselves, that empowers us to love others. So yes, to love and serve others, we also have to look after our own needs. So it's a both and, not an either or.
Yeah, nice. And lastly, there's a new question here. Let's go for one of the questions from last week. We've got a question from last week that we've got time for, and we'll see how many we've got time for here. I think we've got time for one, maybe two quick ones. Sure. Okay. Last week was on following our dreams. Following our dreams and doing what you love are relatively new concepts, aren't they? Why is it so prevalent in Western advanced societies now?
Wow, well, there's a great book, Carl Trueman. I just forget what it's called, came out 1 or 2 years ago, and he traces the history of this, how starting from 2,000 years ago, and then there have been seminal moments, but we've ended up in what we call a very Western individualistic stage, where even Descartes, I think, therefore I am. So all of reality, all of epistemology, all of knowledge is found on the very fact that I am the only reality in this world. And so therefore we've ended up with this extreme position of Western individualism, isolationism, where it's my dreams that count, my truth that counts the most. But we've seen in this example, and it's a story, so a lot of this is metaphor in today's story, but one theme here is God basically, in the end, gives us what we've been asking for. And this man has lived a self-absorbed, isolated life, and in the end, just God hands him over to his wishes. Okay, you've lived for yourself. Okay, now you get to live for yourself only. And that became its own punishment.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's profound when you think about it like that, isn't it? Last question. And coming to the final question for today. So we got through most of our questions so far. How would we communicate these truths about being true to yourself to friends who are non-binary or LGBTQ? For being true to yourself.
I think again saying that there are bigger truths than just our own, and where do our truths come from? And this is where we can be true only to ourselves, but that's where I know when I speak to high schoolers and university students, I'm going to give that example. We all know, we want to be true to ourselves, but does that mean I can leave my wife and kids and start up because I fall in love with someone from work? Almost every high school student says you can't do that. So there's something bigger than just your own truth. And then do my truths then come from my tribe, my society? And again, it can't only come from my tribe, my society, because then we call other cultures wrong, like South Africa, apartheid. So at some stage, someone's going to call our tribe, our society wrong. And that's a form of majority rules ethics anyway. Do I look to nature for my truths? But again, they're conflicting truths, so, and I won't get into all that. So at some stage, we have to trust, is there a loving, powerful God, and he determines what is a good choice for me to make as an individual, what is a good choice for society to make, and what is good in nature for me to emulate. And so the bigger question is there a bigger story than just our own story that we have to be true to? And so can I trust that there's a loving, powerful God with that bigger story? I'm not going to understand everything in that bigger story, but I'm just going to trust him on this one.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sam. Smash the questions, I think. But, these are deep questions, and we have to smash through them in a very short time now, being kind to the next service that's coming in here. But understand there's a lot more depth to some of these questions behind, these are deep questions. And so if you want to talk more about these questions, please do chat to Sam, chat to myself. We're very happy to talk afterwards and keep that conversation going. Yeah, thank you so much.